Lady Eleanor Ashford walked briskly down South Kensington Road, the heels of her polished black shoes clacking against the pavement. She had barely left her mother's funeral, her heart still heavy, the scent of lilies lingering in her memory. Her eyes flickered between the rows of elegant brick townhouses and the thrumming stream of London traffic, feeling both trapped and oddly comforted by the bustling anonymity of the city. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket, startling her. Glancing quickly at the screen, she recognized the number instantly and answered, voice tight with apprehension. "Rupert?" "Ah, Eleanor." Rupert Ashford's voice purred smoothly over the line, cool and impeccably composed, the very embodiment of upper-class English detachment. "I trust Mother had a decent send-off?" Her jaw tightened slightly. "What do you want, Rupert? It's hardly the time for pleasantries." His voice cut hers like a surgical blade, precise, chilling. "Well then, I'll be direct. If you aren't back at Ashford Stud by tomorrow evening, dear sister, the bank will move to repossess the estate. The buyers are already lined up." Eleanor halted abruptly, causing a harried businessman behind her to bump into her shoulder sharply, muttering irritably as he pushed past. She steadied herself against the cold iron railing beside her, struggling to steady her breathing. "That's impossible. Mother wouldn't let things get that far." Rupert's laughter was short and dry, a cruel amusement slicing beneath the facade of family. Mother, bless her heart, had sentimental attachments clouding her financial judgments. Sentimentality, Eleanor, doesn't pay debts. If you'd been home instead of gallivanting around London playing PR queen, you might have seen it coming. Her fingers tightened painfully around her phone, knuckles whitening. "This is still my home, Rupert." "Home," he scoffed. "You haven't stepped foot here in years. Your home is a London flat and high society parties. Ashford Stud's a sinking ship, Ellie. Cut your losses and sell. Be sensible for once." "Don't you dare lecture me on responsibility," Eleanor hissed, her voice sharp, drawing curious glances from passers-by. "You're the one ready to strip the bones of Mother's life work for quick profit." Rupert sighed theatrically, feigning sympathy. "Oh, please, spare me the dramatics. Mother failed to adapt, and the place has run itself into ruin. It's time to put Ashford Stud out of its misery. Face reality, Eleanor." She could hear him smiling through the phone, that impeccably tailored Savile Row suit no doubt immaculate, eyes cold and calculating. Rupert Ashford, master manipulator, heir apparent to cold-blooded practicality. The sudden shriek of a nearby bus snapped Eleanor back to the present, its bulk speeding mere inches from where she stood on the sidewalk edge, gusting stale diesel fumes into her face. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as Rupert continued speaking. "You have exactly 24 hours to return and sign the paperwork. After that, your opinions won't matter. I really hope you'll be reasonable." The line clicked dead, and Eleanor stared at her phone screen, stunned, feeling the icy claws of panic creep steadily upward. She had built a life here, distanced herself from the weight of tradition, from horses and hay bales, sprawling green fields and endless chores. Yet beneath the glittering charm of her metropolitan life, the echo of hoofbeats and the soft nicker of horses lingered stubbornly. She realized with sudden painful clarity that she had never truly escaped Ashford. It was woven into her being, bound tightly to her childhood memories of galloping freely across mist-covered fields, of stable hands tipping caps respectfully, and the warmth of Mother's reassuring smile. Eleanor spun quickly on her heels, heart racing as she hailed a passing black cab. Sliding into the back seat, she gave the address of her flat urgently. She had a day, one frantic, desperate day, to drop everything, turn away from London, and race to save her heritage. Her mother's legacy, the proud Ashford lineage, a lineage now precariously close to extinction, rested entirely upon her actions. Hours passed in a blur of hurried phone calls, hurried packing, and rushed goodbyes. The sun dipped low, turning the London skyline to blazing copper as Eleanor loaded the final suitcase into her vintage Range Rover. She caught her reflection in the tinted glass, her usually meticulous hair now wild, cheeks flushed, eyes determined but deeply troubled. Driving out from the city's outskirts, Eleanor was swamped by memories, images of childhood rides with her mother, whispered bedtime stories of legendary thoroughbreds, and the overpowering aroma of saddle leather and fresh-cut hay. Her grip tightened on the steering wheel, white-knuckled as anxiety churned in her gut. Could she truly reclaim what she'd once willingly abandoned? Night enveloped the countryside swiftly, shadows cloaking fields and hedgerows. The city, bright and relentless, retreated behind her, replaced by an eerie rural silence broken only by occasional muffled sounds of distant farm animals. The sign marking her return to Berkshire County glistened briefly in her headlights, an ominous landmark of her looming reality. Her phone rang again, shrill and jarring in the quiet. She answered without checking the caller ID. "I'm on my way, Rupert." "Miss Ashford, this is Gordon from the Berkshire Gazette. Any comment about your intention to sell Ashford Stud?" Eleanor stiffened. Rupert, she thought bitterly, his PR campaign against her already in full swing. The press smelled blood in the water, eager for scandal, drama, and tragedy. "No comment," she answered firmly, hanging up. Exhaustion tugged at her eyelids, but Eleanor forced herself alert, glancing at the car clock. Nearly midnight. The estate's gates loomed ahead, rusted yet somehow grand. Her heart hammered as she drove through the entrance, gravel crunching beneath tires, headlights illuminating the familiar stables, elegant even in neglect. Eleanor stepped out, inhaling deeply the crisp, earth-scented air. She stood alone, surrounded by darkness and history, burdened by decisions and doubts. She whispered into the quiet, speaking softly as though to reassure herself, "I'm home." But even as she said it, she wondered whether the place she called home could truly accept her return, and whether she had the strength to save it. Morning sunlight seeped hesitantly through the lace curtains of Eleanor's childhood bedroom, highlighting faded floral wallpaper and antique furnishings that whispered of more prosperous days. Eleanor stood silently at the tall window, overlooking fields that stretched wide and endless, fields once brimming with champion thoroughbreds and busy stable hands. Now these lands were subdued, their glory hidden beneath patches of weeds and unkempt fencing. With a heavy sigh, Eleanor donned her practical attire, boots and jeans, suitable for stable work, and made her way down the creaking staircase into the kitchen. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted toward her, startlingly nostalgic. Agnes, the estate's longtime housekeeper, busied herself at the stove, casting a weary glance over her shoulder as Eleanor entered. "Miss Eleanor," Agnes said quietly, her voice gentle but uncertain. "Welcome home." Eleanor smiled warmly at the older woman, grateful for her familiar presence. "Thank you, Agnes. It's good to see you." The silence between them was brief but poignant, an understanding passing silently. Agnes handed Eleanor a steaming mug of coffee, her gaze serious. "Rupert has scheduled a meeting today, around noon, Miss Eleanor. He's inviting investors." Eleanor's jaw tightened briefly before she nodded resolutely. "I'll deal with him later. First, I want to see the horses. How bad is it? Agnes hesitated, her eyes sorrowful, words caught in her throat. Eleanor didn't push further, merely placing a reassuring hand on Agnes's shoulder as she exited toward the stables. Outside, the early spring air carried a chill that bit through Eleanor's jacket, promising another uncertain season. As she approached the sprawling stables, once the heartbeat of Ashford Stud, she paused, taking in the full reality. The grand structures, crafted of fine wood and stone by her ancestors, showed signs of severe neglect. Peeling paint, cracked masonry, and loose shingles hinted at years of deferred maintenance. Eleanor felt an ache of shame and sadness deep in her chest. She entered cautiously, her eyes slowly adjusting to the dim light. Rows of empty stalls, once bustling with life, stared back at her in mute accusation. Only a few horses remained, heads low, ears drooping, a stark reminder of what was at stake. A mocking chuckle drew her attention sharply to the far end of the stable. A stout, broad-shouldered man stood leaning casually against one of the stall gates, thumbs hooked arrogantly into his belt loops. Eleanor recognized the man immediately, Derek Grayson, the current head trainer hired by Rupert. He regarded her lazily, a smug grin plastered across his ruddy face. "Morning, Lady Ashford," Derek drawled sarcastically, tipping an imaginary hat with exaggerated courtesy. "Fancy seeing you back at the old ranch." Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly, but her voice remained calm, resolute. "I'm here to assess the horses. Where's your current contender?" Derek laughed dismissively, the sound echoing harshly off the wooden rafters. "Contender? You must be joking. Ain't no contenders left here, only old nags and charity cases. Rupert's got buyers lined up. He's smart enough to know it's time to let go." "Show me," Eleanor insisted firmly, ignoring his provocation. With an exaggerated sigh, Derek gestured toward a shadowed corner stall. Eleanor stepped forward cautiously, peering through the bars. In the shadows stood a smaller horse, Nightshade. He was shorter than the others, lacking the powerful stature usually admired in thoroughbreds. His coat was dull, his mane tangled, yet something in his dark, intelligent eyes captured Eleanor's attention immediately. She reached out slowly, whispering softly, "Hey, boy," her voice barely audible, cautious but inviting. Nightshade stepped forward hesitantly, ears flicking nervously as Eleanor's fingertips brushed his nose. Warm breath tickled her skin, forging an instant connection. Derek scoffed loudly from behind her. "You're wasting your time. That runt there couldn't even win a children's pony ride, let alone compete against real thoroughbreds." Eleanor ignored him, running her hand thoughtfully along Nightshade's neck, feeling the muscles ripple nervously beneath her touch. A memory flickered suddenly. Her mother's gentle voice, recounting tales of champion underdogs who had defied expectations and won races no one believed they could. She turned abruptly toward Derek, resolve crystallizing in her eyes. "I'm entering Nightshade in the Triple Crown." The statement hung in the air, momentarily silencing Derek's mocking demeanor. His laughter burst forth a moment later, loud and cruel, echoing through the stable like a shot. "Triple Crown? With that scrawny excuse for a thoroughbred? Are you out of your mind?" Eleanor stepped closer, her voice steady and firm, eyes blazing with quiet conviction. "I trust my instincts. You might dismiss Nightshade because you don't recognize potential beyond the obvious. But champions aren't always the biggest or strongest. They're often the bravest. And sometimes, Mr. Grayson, courage is what wins." Derek's expression darkened, his voice low with barely concealed contempt. "Your funeral, Lady Ashford. Rupert won't be pleased you're throwing away more money." She lifted her chin defiantly, voice resolute. Rupert can handle disappointment. Derek sneered, storming from the stable, boots crunching loudly on the gravel outside. Eleanor breathed deeply, turning her focus back to Nightshade. The horse watched her, head tilted curiously, seemingly sensing the shift in his fortunes. The stables were still and quiet now, shadows cast by slats of sunlight dancing across the wooden floor. Eleanor sank to a bale of straw, allowing the weight of her decision to sink in fully. She had taken a tremendous risk. Rupert would surely rally opposition, investors would demand explanations, and the racing world, skeptical and unforgiving, would scrutinize her every step. But she also knew this was her chance, perhaps her only chance, to reclaim what was lost. Not just Ashford Stud, but the faith her mother once held in her and the legacy Eleanor owed her own children. A chance, slim but fierce, to prove that courage, conviction, and belief could triumph against all odds. She rested her forehead gently against Nightshade's flank, feeling his heartbeat beneath warm skin, a rhythm steady and reassuring, whispering quietly to herself as much as to the horse. "We're both underdogs now," Eleanor murmured softly, voice filled with quiet determination. "But that's exactly why we're going to win." The next morning dawned gray and somber, mist shrouding the sprawling hills of Ashford Stud in an ethereal blanket, accentuating the weariness of the neglected land. Eleanor woke before dawn, her heart pounding with urgency as she prepared herself mentally for the critical journey ahead. Rupert's impending meeting with investors loomed ominously on her schedule, but there was something she needed even more desperately: a trainer with the grit and knowledge to turn a seeming disaster into a miracle. Dressed in jeans, leather boots, and her trusted wax jacket, Eleanor stepped out into the chill, damp air. Dew clung to the tall grass, and cobwebs glistened like spun silver across the fence lines. She glanced toward the stables, spotting Nightshade standing alertly, his proud head raised, almost as if he sensed the weight of the moment. Eleanor felt a quiet confidence surge through her. Nightshade was her chance, her underdog, a symbol of resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Climbing into her Range Rover, Eleanor set out toward the secluded forests of Hampshire's New Forest, where Sir Arthur Montgomery had withdrawn from the racing world years ago, cultivating a reclusive life that bordered on legend. Sir Arthur was not a man easily persuaded. He was infamous for his temper, his stern refusal to engage with the media, and an ironclad reputation that demanded respect. Yet Eleanor knew in her bones that only he possessed the wisdom, skill, and determination necessary to transform Nightshade into a champion. Her journey led her along winding roads, beneath dense woodland canopies that filtered light into ghostly ribbons. The ancient oaks and elms loomed large, their boughs whispering quietly in the wind, secrets of the past held safely within their roots. Eleanor tightened her grip on the wheel, her mind racing. How would she convince Sir Arthur, a man who had walked away from racing years ago, dismissing it bitterly as a game for fools and profiteers, to return one last time? Finally, the woodland opened to reveal an isolated stone cottage nestled discreetly amidst tall hedges, smoke drifting lazily from its chimney. Eleanor parked the Rover, her heart quickening as she approached the worn wooden door. She knocked firmly, steeling herself as heavy footsteps echoed from within. The door creaked open slowly, revealing Sir Arthur Montgomery, an imposing figure whose presence seemed larger than his actual stature. His keen gray eyes narrowed suspiciously, assessing her silently. "You're an Ashford," He growled in a gruff, unwelcoming voice. I've seen your mother's fierce spirit in you. Eleanor straightened, meeting his piercing gaze steadily. Sir Arthur, my name is Eleanor Ashford. I need your help. He snorted, shaking his head with a smirk. Lady Ashford, I've retired. Moved on. Racing's no place for me, or you. Eleanor held her ground, refusing to budge. Please, I'm asking you to help me save Ashford Stud. Sir Arthur eyed her critically, folding his powerful arms across his chest, eyes bright beneath bushy white brows. The estate has been doomed for years, young lady. Your brother made sure of that. What makes you think you can fix it now? Because I'm willing to stake everything on one horse, Eleanor said boldly, heart racing. Nightshade. Sir Arthur laughed dryly, a bitter sound that stung sharply. Nightshade? The runt? I've seen the creature. He wouldn't place in a Sunday charity race. Eleanor stepped forward, eyes blazing. He has potential. I saw it clearly. He's got spirit and heart. Qualities you taught champions need, sir. Give me 3 months, that's all. Train Nightshade for the Triple Crown. The elderly trainer scowled deeply, his rugged face shadowed by skepticism. 3 months to turn a pony into a Triple Crown contender? Utter madness. It's our only shot, Eleanor insisted, voice steady, unyielding. Silence stretched taut between them, broken only by the rustling leaves and distant birdsong. At last, Sir Arthur sighed deeply, his fierce eyes softening ever so slightly. You've got courage. I'll grant you that. But courage alone doesn't win races. You're gambling everything on a faint hope. Then gamble with me, Eleanor challenged, her voice barely a whisper, resolute yet vulnerable. Because I'm not backing down, not without trying. If anyone can make this work, it's you. Sir Arthur regarded her carefully, his expression unreadable for long moments before he finally sighed again, deeper this time, a concession of sorts. All right, 3 months. But understand clearly, Eleanor. When I say it's over, you stop immediately. Understood. Eleanor agreed quickly, extending her hand with determination. You have my word. He stared at her extended hand, hesitated briefly, then grasped it firmly, sealing the unlikely partnership. Let's hope you have more than words to back up your promise. Their agreement settled, Eleanor felt relief flood her limbs, the weight of her gamble pressing heavily on her shoulders. As she turned toward her vehicle, Sir Arthur called after her gruffly, You realize people will laugh at us. The press will tear you apart. Eleanor paused briefly, glancing back with defiant calmness. Then let them laugh. We're racing for ourselves, for something worth believing in again. The return drive was quieter, contemplative yet tense with expectation. Eleanor's mind buzzed with plans and uncertainties. Rupert would resist fiercely. He always did. She was bracing for conflict, yet beneath it all simmered hope, a delicate flame of possibility she hadn't felt in years. Pulling back onto Ashford grounds, Eleanor spotted Rupert's polished Jaguar parked arrogantly before the main house, a stark reminder of the imminent meeting. She parked resolutely beside it, the contrast between her mud-spattered Rover and Rupert's gleaming luxury vehicle starkly symbolic. Rupert stepped from the grand doorway, eyeing her appearance disdainfully. "Eleanor, late again?" he drawled sarcastically. "I assume you're here to finally face reality?" She paused, standing firm. "I've made my decision, Rupert. I'm racing Nightshade." He sneered openly, dismissive and mocking. "I hoped for better sense from you. You're truly mother's daughter, in sentimentality and reckless stubbornness." Eleanor lifted her chin defiantly, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. And proud of it, she stepped confidently past Rupert into the house, her resolve unwavering, her heart set on the impossible yet compelling dream she dared to resurrect. She was all in now, with the legendary Sir Arthur by her side, ready to fight not only for Nightshade's redemption, but her own, and for a legacy that deserved saving. 3 days later, Eleanor stood at the paddock gate, her coat collar turned up against the drizzling spring rain, eyes locked on Nightshade. Beside her stood Sir Arthur, clipboard and stopwatch in hand, a weathered fedora shielding his expression from view. His silence was tense, full of unspoken doubts and guarded expectations. "Let's get started," he finally growled, gesturing toward Nightshade, now freshly groomed, coat shining under the soft gray sky. Time's wasting. The paddock was muddy and slippery, the field a slick expanse of wet grass, but Nightshade stepped forward obediently, ears perked, eyes bright with cautious curiosity. Eleanor felt her chest swell with pride and apprehension. It was a fragile balance. Hope and dread mingled, each as likely to break her as to sustain her. "Amelia York's arrived," Sir Arthur announced quietly, tilting his head toward the stable entrance, where a young woman was approaching confidently. Amelia was petite, wiry, her sharp eyes assessing Nightshade with practiced calculation. She had short, fiery red hair and carried herself with fierce determination, exactly the daring rider Eleanor believed Nightshade needed. Eleanor shook Amelia's hand warmly, recognizing instantly the spark of mutual resolve in her gaze. "I'm Eleanor Ashford. Thank you for coming." Amelia nodded briefly, her voice crisp and matter-of-fact. "Glad to be here. Heard this horse was your underdog. I like underdogs. They surprise people." "We certainly hope so," Eleanor murmured, smiling slightly, anxiety fluttering deep in her stomach. "Let's get you acquainted." Amelia stepped carefully to Nightshade, running her hand along his glossy flank, whispering gently. Eleanor watched, holding her breath as the jockey nimbly mounted, settling into the saddle with practiced ease. Sir Arthur grunted approval, signaling for the first exercise. The training began in earnest, long hours spent meticulously honing Nightshade's raw talent. Sir Arthur had lost none of his rigorous demands in retirement. Every stride was examined, each movement dissected and adjusted. Eleanor watched, notebook in hand, absorbing every correction, every stern command, every subtle adjustment Sir Arthur demanded. Montages of hard work unfolded relentlessly beneath the persistent rain, Sir Arthur striding purposefully, barking instructions, his voice echoing firmly across the open fields. Amelia guiding Nightshade around tight corners, coaxing greater speed and control, eyes fierce with determination. Eleanor meticulously studying thoroughbred bloodlines late into the night. Her desk cluttered with notes, eyes shadowed by exhaustion but glowing with resolve. Days passed swiftly, consumed entirely by training, adjustments, failures, and fleeting triumphs. Eleanor stood vigilantly by, fully immersed in the painstaking effort required to turn a perceived charity case into a true contender. But progress was painfully slow, and doubts nagged constantly at the edges of Eleanor's mind. The true test came abruptly one rain-drenched afternoon. Eleanor watched anxiously as Amelia pushed Nightshade harder, testing his endurance with a series of sprints. Mud splattered high, breathing labored, Nightshade's hooves pounding rhythmically against the saturated earth, each stride straining, driven by pure determination. But suddenly, Nightshade stumbled badly, front hooves skidding treacherously through mud, legs buckling sharply beneath him. Eleanor's heart froze as she watched him collapse heavily to the ground, sliding forward, momentum grinding to a painful halt. Amelia was thrown clear, rolling expertly through the mud to a safe stop, springing swiftly to her feet, shaken but unharmed. "Nightshade!" Eleanor called desperately, already sprinting toward the fallen horse, her heart pounding violently. Amelia scrambled forward as well, concern etched deeply across her mud-streaked face. Nightshade lay still a moment, chest heaving, eyes wide and panicked. Eleanor knelt beside him, stroking his neck soothingly. "It's all right, boy," she whispered urgently, trying to conceal the trembling in her voice. "I'm here." Sir Arthur reached them quickly, expression grim, his voice heavy with suppressed frustration. "He's pushed too far. This horse is all heart, Eleanor, but the body's weak." Eleanor's chest clenched painfully, despair threatening to crush her resolve. Tears stung her eyes, but she forced them back, standing determinedly as Nightshade struggled to his feet, legs trembling slightly, but ears flicking bravely forward. She could sense his stubborn refusal to surrender, and it steeled her own resolve. "We'll rest him for today," Sir Arthur announced firmly, eyes narrowed in careful assessment. "Re-evaluate tomorrow." As Eleanor led Nightshade carefully back toward the stables, Amelia walked quietly beside her, eyes thoughtful. "He's brave," Amelia said finally, admiration evident. "But bravery alone won't win races. He needs muscle, conditioning, and mental toughness." Eleanor nodded solemnly, deeply grateful for the young jockey's honesty. "Can you get him there?" Amelia smiled softly, eyes determined. "I promise I'll do my best. He's special. He deserves our faith." That evening, exhausted and anxious, Eleanor sat alone in the stable's modest office, the dim glow of the lamp illuminating stacks of paperwork and photographs of past victories. Her mother's proud smiles captured forever. Eleanor ran fingers through her tangled hair, sighing heavily. The door creaked softly, and Sir Arthur entered, his expression unusually gentle beneath his gruff exterior. He handed her a steaming mug of tea, the warmth comforting against her chilled hands. "You've chosen a difficult path," he said quietly, eyes unreadable. "The next months will be even harder." Eleanor nodded slowly, sipping carefully from the steaming cup. "But is it possible, Arthur? Or am I merely clinging desperately to a fantasy?" He studied her silently, eyes reflecting the weight of 1,000 races won and lost. Finally, he leaned forward earnestly. "Eleanor, I've seen countless champions. They weren't necessarily the fastest or strongest. They succeeded because someone believed enough to push them past their limits. Nightshade has heart. Rare, undeniable heart. Now it's up to you to believe." She sat quietly a moment, absorbing his words carefully, feeling their profound weight. When she looked up again, her gaze was steady, fear subdued by determination. "I believe," she murmured softly, voice unwavering, "and I won't stop fighting for him." Outside, rain continued softly falling, gently soaking the fields, nourishing fresh growth beneath muddy layers, a quiet reminder of renewal hidden within struggle. Inside the modest stable office, a new promise took root firmly between trainer and owner, horse and rider. They would defy odds together, championing a belief in courage, resilience, and unwavering faith. The path ahead would be punishing, uncertain, perhaps heartbreaking. Yet Eleanor knew clearly, profoundly, it was the only path worth taking. Race day dawned crisp and clear over Newmarket, the sky stretching wide and pale, devoid of the previous week's unrelenting clouds and drizzle. A vibrant hum of excitement filled the air, and crowds swelled eagerly around the racecourse, anticipation pulsing through every conversation, every fluttering ticket, every hopeful cheer. Eleanor arrived early at the stables, her heart pounding anxiously as she moved through the familiar rituals. Nightshade stood quietly, his sleek coat gleaming beneath the morning sun, the stable hands meticulously braiding his mane. Eleanor ran a gentle hand along his neck, feeling the reassuring warmth of his muscles, toned from weeks of grueling preparation. "Today is your moment, Nightshade," Eleanor murmured softly, her voice tight with emotion. The horse snorted softly, eyes steady, ears twitching lightly forward, sensing her tension. Eleanor smiled despite herself, leaning her forehead gently against Nightshade's warm neck. "You're ready for this. We're ready." "Eleanor," Sir Arthur's voice broke gently from behind her, drawing her attention. He stood in the stable doorway, his lined face calm yet serious. "It's nearly time. Amelia is waiting." She nodded, stepping back reluctantly. Amelia entered quietly, her riding gear impeccable, her face resolute and focused. The jockey nodded in greeting, quickly mounting Nightshade, settling herself firmly, hands confident yet careful on the reins. "Remember what we practiced?" Sir Arthur instructed sternly, handing her a helmet and whip. "Maintain your pace. Don't rush him too early. Let him find his stride before pushing forward." "I understand," Amelia replied, her voice steady and unwavering. Her eyes met Eleanor's briefly, a spark of shared hope and tension passing silently between them. Together, they emerged from the stables into the sunlight, walking steadily toward the grandstand where spectators and media clamored, their gaze eager for a glimpse of Nightshade, the curious underdog everyone had heard whispers of, but few truly believed in. The horses gathered at the starting gate, Nightshade placed toward the middle, surrounded by sleek thoroughbreds whose physiques and pedigrees far outshone his modest presence. Eleanor felt Rupert's gaze burning coldly from the exclusive box above, his presence a constant reminder of what stood at stake. Rupert's smirk, arrogant and disdainful, was unmistakable, his certainty of her failure etched plainly upon his features. The bell rang sharply, and the gates burst open, horses surging forward in a sudden explosive rush of power and speed. Eleanor clenched her fists tightly, breath trapped painfully in her chest, heart hammering wildly against her ribs. Nightshade sprang forward smoothly, finding his rhythm swiftly, strides long and confident. Amelia crouched low, her form perfect, calm and poised amidst the pounding of hooves and cries of jockeys around her. The field remained tight through the first furlong, jockeying fiercely for position, dust rising thickly beneath the onslaught of pounding hooves. By the halfway mark, Nightshade had maneuvered skillfully toward the inside rail, his pace steady and controlled, positioning himself strategically just behind the leaders. Eleanor felt her pulse quicken, Amelia's discipline evident as she maintained careful restraint, biding her time as Sir Arthur had instructed. Around the final turn, Amelia began nudging Nightshade forward, the horse responding instantly, surging ahead to challenge the leaders. The crowd erupted in excitement, cheers echoing powerfully through the grandstands. Eleanor leaned forward eagerly, voice lost amidst thousands, silently urging Nightshade on. Then, in a sudden, unexpected moment, Amelia whipped the reins prematurely, urging Nightshade aggressively forward, breaking the meticulously calculated timing Sir Arthur had emphasized so fiercely. "No," Eleanor gasped helplessly, heart sinking painfully as she watched Nightshade surge ahead momentarily, accelerating bravely, responding valiantly to Amelia's sudden demand. But Eleanor's fears proved painfully prophetic. With the finish line still agonizingly distant, Nightshade faltered abruptly, his powerful surge wavering, breath labored as exhaustion stole swiftly upon him. Eleanor watched helplessly as rival horses overtook Nightshade, hooves pounding mercilessly past, each stride deepening her dread. In a desperate effort, Amelia urged Nightshade forward once more, whip cracking sharply in futile determination. Nightshade fought bravely, ears pinned back, nostrils flaring, but exhaustion betrayed his courageous heart, legs heavy, strides faltering. He crossed the finish line a heartbreaking third, spent and breathless, head low with defeat. Eleanor's vision blurred with tears of frustration and sorrow. All around her erupted ecstatic cheers and applause for the winning horse, magnifying Nightshade's crushing loss. Rupert's laughter echoed cruelly in her ears as she descended the grandstand steps, heart aching bitterly. Moments later, her phone buzzed insistently, a message alert from Agnes back home. Eleanor opened it reluctantly. Telegraph headline online now. Ashford's folly, embarrassing third place. Rupert scheduling immediate investor meeting tonight. Be prepared. Returning to the stables, Eleanor found Nightshade cooling down quietly, his breath steadying slowly, body trembling faintly from exertion. Amelia stood beside him, face pale and eyes filled with bitter self-recrimination. "I rushed it," Amelia whispered hoarsely, her voice choked with emotion. "I lost patience. It's entirely my fault." Eleanor gently placed a hand on Amelia's shoulder, voice compassionate despite her disappointment. "You did your best. We're learning. The fault isn't solely yours." Amelia nodded silently, shame still lingering heavily upon her. Sir Arthur approached quietly, his face stern but calm. "He showed potential out there, Eleanor, but discipline failed. Racing demands patience. Today, ours ran thin." Eleanor nodded slowly, her eyes determined. "We'll adjust. We're not defeated yet." Sir Arthur's gaze softened slightly, respect evident in his voice. "Resilience, Lady Ashford. It's your strength." As night descended upon Ashford Stud, Eleanor faced the assembled investors Rupert had gathered in the grand hall, his victory evident in every arrogant gesture. "An honorable effort, Eleanor." Rupert smirked mockingly, brandishing the Telegraph's headline triumphantly. "But folly nonetheless. Ashford Stud is finished. Sign the transfer documents tonight, and save what's left of our dignity." She faced him resolutely, head held high despite aching exhaustion, refusing surrender. "Today was merely a setback, Rupert," Eleanor declared firmly, voice unwavering despite her trembling heart. "Nightshade will race again, and next time we won't make the same mistake." Rupert chuckled disdainfully, eyes glittering with thinly veiled malice. "Stubbornness suits you poorly, sister." "Perhaps," Eleanor replied calmly, eyes cold with determination. "But it suits Ashford Stud perfectly." As Rupert glared furiously, Eleanor felt newfound resolve surge strongly within her. Nightshade's defeat, though bitter, had taught a valuable lesson. Discipline, patience, courage, she would reclaim them all, driving forward relentlessly until victory finally belonged not only to Nightshade, but to herself and the legacy she so desperately sought to save. In the days following the disappointment at Newmarket, Eleanor felt the walls of Ashford Stud closing in tighter than ever. Everywhere she turned, Rupert's shadow loomed, a menacing specter eager to exploit any failure. Yet Eleanor knew the race wasn't over. With dogged determination, She worked tirelessly alongside Amelia and Sir Arthur to ensure Nightshade's setback was temporary, not terminal. Early mornings became late nights, marked by strenuous training sessions and meticulous evaluations. Eleanor watched anxiously as Amelia guided Nightshade through careful exercises, keenly attentive for signs of fatigue or lingering injury. Beneath their patient efforts lay a quiet undercurrent of worry. The thoroughbred's resilience was unmistakable, but each stride brought with it the heavy burden of uncertainty. It wasn't long before Rupert unleashed his next calculated move. One afternoon, Eleanor returned from the training grounds, muddy and weary, to find Rupert standing smugly in the drawing room, dressed in his impeccably tailored suit, a glass of expensive scotch in hand. Beside him sat three strangers in similarly sharp suits, clearly representatives from powerful investment firms, their eyes analytical, judgmental. "Eleanor?" Rupert greeted smoothly, raising his glass slightly in a mock toast. "Glad you could join us. We've been discussing the future, specifically the viability of this estate. It seems your reckless escapade at the Guineas has made the decision rather obvious." "Rupert." Eleanor's voice was ice-cold, tightly controlled despite her rising fury. "This is neither the time nor place for your theatrics." Rupert's smile hardened, eyes narrowing dangerously. "You misunderstand. This isn't theatrics, dear sister. This is reality. Your stubbornness will bankrupt this family." Eleanor drew a deep breath, feeling the investors' stares burning into her, waiting for her reaction. Calmly, she stepped forward, meeting each gaze squarely. "Gentlemen, Ashford Stud is not merely a business venture. It's legacy, our family's heart and soul. One setback doesn't define our fate." Rupert scoffed softly, shaking his head theatrically. "And there lies your folly. Sentimental nonsense won't salvage poor management. It's time to let reason prevail over childish dreams." The tension thickened, Eleanor's jaw tightening as she fought to control her emotions. "This conversation is over. Excuse me." She turned swiftly, footsteps firm against polished marble, feeling Rupert's triumphant smile burning at her back. Eleanor knew the investors weren't convinced. Her brother's venomous words had planted dangerous seeds. As she ascended the staircase, emotionally drained, her phone buzzed furiously. Glancing at the screen, her stomach twisted painfully. It was a live stream notification from her daughter Beatrice's social media. Eleanor's heart dropped as she saw the bold caption, "Truth about Lady Eleanor Ashford, horses before family." With trembling fingers, Eleanor opened the link, dread pooling like ice water in her veins. Beatrice appeared on screen, her youthful face pinched with hurt and resentment, speaking passionately to hundreds of watching followers. "My mother," Beatrice said bitterly, voice shaking visibly, "has abandoned us. She cares more about Nightshade, her horse, than her own children. She's chasing impossible dreams and dragging our family down with her. She's forgotten we even exist." The words sliced sharply into Eleanor's heart, leaving her breathless, the pain raw and profound. She stared numbly at the screen, hearing whispers of betrayal echo endlessly in her ears. Beatrice's hurt was genuine, her words echoing grievances Eleanor had long feared silently, but desperately hoped would never surface. Dropping heavily onto the bed, Eleanor allowed silent tears to fall briefly, each one a testament to wounds deeper than any defeat on the racecourse. Gathering herself slowly, she realized how dangerously fragile her family bonds had become. Winning races meant nothing if she lost Beatrice and Oliver in the process. Night fell quietly, tension still lingering thickly throughout Ashford's halls. Eleanor rose wearily, wrapping herself in a shawl, walking softly toward Nightshade's stable. The air outside was crisp and cool, the moon high and silver above the rolling fields. Inside the stable, Sir Arthur waited, standing rigidly beside Nightshade, face etched with deep concern. Eleanor instantly sensed something was terribly wrong. "What is it, Arthur?" she asked sharply, dread heavy in her voice. He hesitated briefly, eyes reflecting profound worry. "Nightshade's leg. His tendon is swollen slightly, signs of inflammation. It might be minor, or the start of something more serious." Eleanor's heart squeezed painfully, her world tilting dangerously. She stepped closer, gently running her hand along Nightshade's foreleg. The warmth of inflammation was unmistakable. "Can we treat it?" Her voice trembled, barely audible, vulnerability raw. "We can try," Sir Arthur replied gravely, compassion deepening his voice. "But Eleanor, this is critical. He either needs immediate rest or he must win quickly. There's no middle path. If we push forward, the strain could ruin him permanently." Eleanor exhaled sharply, despair tugging sharply at her resolve. Nightshade's intelligent eyes met hers, calm despite his discomfort, reflecting silent trust. Her heart ached profoundly, faced now with the ultimate gamble, the highest possible stakes. She swallowed hard, voice firm despite the turmoil within. "We'll proceed cautiously, Arthur. I trust you implicitly, but we cannot afford to withdraw, not now." Sir Arthur nodded solemnly, understanding clearly the brutal calculus required. "Then we'll proceed with extreme care. But Eleanor, be prepared. The next decision we make may be even harder." Returning slowly to the manor, Eleanor felt exhausted, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Yet deep inside remained a core of unyielding determination. She knew clearly the battle she fought stretched beyond mere racing glory. This was a fight for integrity, legacy, and the bonds tying her family together. As she passed Beatrice's room, Eleanor paused, heart aching softly. Quietly, she knocked, pushing open the door gently. Beatrice glanced up sharply, eyes reddened from crying, defensive anger flaring briefly before fading into cautious uncertainty. "Beatrice," Eleanor whispered gently, voice soft with humility and sorrow. "Can we talk?" After a long, fragile silence, Beatrice finally nodded slowly, her gaze guarded yet vulnerable. Eleanor sat carefully on the bed's edge, searching earnestly for the right words. "I haven't been there enough, Beatrice. You're right to feel hurt. But please know this, I'm fighting for something bigger than myself, bigger than pride. This estate is your heritage, too. I want desperately to build something meaningful, something lasting for you and Oliver." Beatrice watched quietly, conflict flickering in her eyes. Finally, she sighed softly, defenses slowly lowering. "Mom, I want to believe you, but please, don't forget we're here. Oliver and I need you too." Eleanor embraced her gently, relief flooding her heart. "I promise, Beatrice. Together we'll rebuild trust and our future." As night settled deeply around Ashford Stud, Eleanor knew the battles ahead would test her courage and conviction more profoundly than ever before. But she was ready to fight fiercely, to heal broken bonds, to protect everything precious and true. Ashford's heart still beat strongly, resilient, courageous, and ultimately unbreakable. The air on Derby Day was electric, humming with anticipation and excitement beneath a brilliant early summer sky. Epsom Downs racecourse sprawled magnificently, its legendary Tattenham corner gleaming in the golden sun, and spectators filled every available space. Ladies with extravagant hats mingled with sharp-suited gentlemen, their laughter and chatter blending into a vibrant chorus. Lady Eleanor Ashford arrived quietly, heart pulsing rapidly beneath her composed exterior. Today was pivotal, not just for Nightshade, but for her family, her legacy, and the soul of Ashford Stud. Her gaze swept the vast crowd, landing briefly on Rupert's ostentatious box, where investors laughed freely, confident in Eleanor's impending defeat. But Eleanor steeled herself, turning determinedly toward Nightshade's stable. Inside, Amelia York waited calmly, Nightshade beside her, sleek, proud, and quietly poised. Yet beneath their calm veneer lay a shadow Eleanor couldn't ignore. The recent discovery of inflammation in Nightshade's leg still loomed ominously, a silent threat to the dream they'd poured everything into. "How is he?" Eleanor asked softly, voice tight with barely suppressed anxiety. "Ready?" Amelia answered, her voice firm yet gentle. "He's strong. He wants this as much as we do." Sir Arthur Montgomery stepped forward, stern eyes assessing Nightshade carefully. "Amelia, listen closely. Don't push him early. Let the leaders tire. Hold steady through the first turns. Conserve his strength. Tattenham Corner is where races are won or lost. That's when you give him freedom." Amelia nodded firmly, her eyes steady, resolute. "Understood. Patience first, speed second." Eleanor gently stroked Nightshade's neck, whispering quietly into his ear, "Today is yours, boy. Whatever happens, you've made me proud." Nightshade nudged her softly, intelligent eyes seeming to understand the gravity of her words. Soon after, Eleanor stood anxiously in the stands, heart pounding violently, the weight of hopes and fears nearly overwhelming. A hush swept across the crowd as horses entered the starting gates, Nightshade among them, his smaller stature starkly noticeable beside powerful competitors. The starting bell shattered the silence, gates snapping open. The thunder of hooves was deafening, a raw force of power and speed erupting onto the track. Nightshade surged forward gracefully, Amelia expertly guiding him into a comfortable mid-pack position. Through the first furlongs, the field remained compact, hooves kicking up dust as jockeys maneuvered fiercely for position. Eleanor's hands trembled, heart hammering painfully as she watched Nightshade navigate carefully, disciplined restraint evident in Amelia's controlled movements. Approaching Tattenham Corner, tension escalated palpably. The crowd's cheers intensified, spectators leaning forward eagerly. Nightshade maintained a disciplined position, waiting patiently as Sir Arthur had instructed. Suddenly, Amelia leaned low, whispering urgently to Nightshade, as if unleashed from invisible restraints. Nightshade accelerated fiercely, muscles bunching powerfully as he took the corner sharply, precisely, instantly, gaining ground. "Go, Nightshade!" Eleanor shouted desperately, voice blending with thousands, lost yet powerful in collective fervor. "Run!" With stunning resolve, Nightshade surged forward, his pace electrifying, rivals fading swiftly behind. The gap narrowed, and he seized the lead dramatically, hooves a blur, breath powerful and steady. The stands erupted into frenzied excitement, disbelief and awe echoing through cheers. Eleanor's vision blurred with tears, pride swelling overwhelmingly in her chest as Nightshade thundered decisively across the finish line, shattering the course record in a triumphant display of heart, courage, and sheer determination. She raced down toward the winner's circle, joy and relief nearly overwhelming. But as she arrived breathless beside Amelia, she saw immediately something was wrong. Amelia had dismounted quickly, face tense with concern, kneeling swiftly beside Nightshade, who stood trembling, head lowered, eyes strained. "What's happened?" Eleanor demanded urgently, stomach clenching violently. Amelia's voice shook slightly, her eyes full of fear. "His leg, Eleanor. It's worse." Eleanor dropped instantly beside Nightshade, gently examining his foreleg. Her heart sank painfully. Swelling was already evident, hot and inflamed beneath trembling skin. Sir Arthur appeared grimly, kneeling beside them, eyes deeply shadowed. "We've pushed him to his limits." Suddenly, the racecourse veterinarian approached swiftly, inspecting Nightshade carefully, his expression deeply serious. After long, tense moments, he spoke quietly but firmly, eyes compassionate. "He'll recover with time, but racing again soon would risk permanent injury. He needs extensive rest." Eleanor felt the world spin dangerously, heart wrenching painfully within her chest. Triumph and devastation collided cruelly inside her. Victory soured sharply by sacrifice. She stood shakily, overwhelmed, struggling to maintain composure as cheers still echoed around them, the crowd blissfully unaware of the heartbreaking cost Nightshade had just paid. Later, seated numbly in the jockey's room, Eleanor's exhaustion overcame her suddenly, the room spinning slowly. Her vision blurred sharply, darkness closed swiftly, and consciousness slipped away abruptly. Voices shouted distantly, panic briefly intruding before everything vanished into blackness. When Eleanor awoke moments later, she lay quietly on a narrow bench, surrounded by worried faces. Amelia's concerned eyes, Sir Arthur's gruff expression softened by compassion. "You fainted," Amelia murmured gently, helping her sit carefully. "You've been pushing yourself too hard." Eleanor shook her head softly, eyes damp with tears. "It's Nightshade I'm worried about. I failed him." Sir Arthur's voice broke sharply through her despair, his eyes stern yet gentle. "You failed no one. Nightshade gave everything because he believes in you, Eleanor. Now your task is to protect him, to honor his sacrifice." Eleanor drew a slow breath, resolve slowly reigniting deep within her heart. Amelia squeezed her hand reassuringly, eyes fierce. "We're with you. Nightshade's legacy doesn't end today." Returning later to Ashford, Eleanor walked slowly toward the stables beneath the soft glow of twilight, exhaustion weighing heavily upon her shoulders. Inside, Nightshade stood quietly, wrapped carefully in soothing bandages, head lowered wearily yet bravely. Eleanor stroked him softly, whispering gently, voice thick with gratitude and sorrow. "I promise you rest and healing, boy. You've earned it 1,000 times." Nightshade raised his head slightly, gently nudging Eleanor, reassurance passing silently between them. Outside, darkness deepened gently, the soft glow of stable lights illuminating quietly determined expressions, Amelia's steadfast resolve, Sir Arthur's compassionate guidance. Together, beneath a starlit sky, they forged a solemn vow, bound tightly by triumph and sacrifice alike. Ashford's fight wasn't over. Nightshade's courage had ignited something profound within them all, an unwavering strength, fierce resilience, and unbreakable bonds that would carry them through the uncertain path ahead. The days following the derby were fraught with bitter turmoil. Eleanor felt as if she were fighting battles on every front, against Rupert, against the skepticism of outsiders, and perhaps hardest of all, against her own lingering doubts. Nightshade's injury had cast a heavy shadow over Ashford Stud, deepening the uncertainty already gripping its fate. Rupert wasted no time seizing the moment to press his advantage. Within days, he called a family council, summoning distant cousins and elder members who held shares in Ashford Stud. Eleanor knew immediately that this wasn't merely a discussion. It was an ambush. On the day of the meeting, the grand drawing room at Ashford was filled to capacity. Polished silver trays held delicate glasses of champagne, clinking softly among murmured pleasantries. Rupert stood confidently at the head of the long mahogany table, his immaculate suit and disarming smile radiating persuasive charm. As Eleanor entered, the room hushed briefly. She met Rupert's gaze evenly, aware of the subtle hostility behind his cordial expression. "My dear sister," Rupert began smoothly, spreading his hands wide in a gesture of welcoming generosity. "Glad you could finally join us. Today we decide the future of Ashford." Eleanor stood calmly, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Indeed, Rupert, and I trust everyone here will consider more than just immediate financial gain." Rupert chuckled softly, shaking his head theatrically. "Eleanor's admirable sentimentality is exactly what brought us here. But the truth remains unchanged. Nightshade's injury proves conclusively that Ashford's current path is unsustainable. It's time to move forward pragmatically, sell the property, and safeguard our family's legacy." Murmurs of agreement rippled among the gathered relatives, each carefully avoiding Eleanor's gaze. Her heart tightened painfully. Rupert's poison had seeped deeply into their thinking. Then, unexpectedly, Beatrice stepped quietly forward from the back of the room, her expression solemn and determined. A hush fell again, curious eyes following her closely as she connected her laptop to the room's large screen, pressing play without speaking. Instantly, video footage filled the screen. Eleanor recognized it immediately. Grainy, dimly lit images from Nightshade's stable, filmed secretly by Beatrice. Silence enveloped the room as everyone watched. Nightshade stood shakily in his stall, favoring his injured leg, but his eyes remained bright, fiercely determined. Slowly, painstakingly, he pushed himself upward, fighting visibly against pain and exhaustion, muscles trembling with effort. Yet he stood proudly, head held high, defiant and resolute. The silence stretched powerfully as the video ended. Beatrice turned quietly toward the gathered assembly, voice soft yet passionate. "Nightshade hasn't given up. Neither has my mother. What kind of legacy do we leave if we abandon our courage at the first setback?" Eleanor's throat tightened, tears stinging her eyes as gratitude flooded her heart. She met Beatrice's gaze, seeing newfound respect and quiet apology shining warmly in her daughter's eyes. Rupert scowled darkly, sensing momentum shifting subtly away from him. He spoke sharply, attempting to regain control. "Touching, Beatrice, truly, but sentimental appeals won't erase debts or mend financial realities." Sir Arthur Montgomery stepped forward from where he'd been quietly observing, his commanding presence drawing immediate attention. His voice was deep, carrying quiet authority. "I've trained champions for decades. Rarely have I encountered a horse with Nightshade's heart and determination. He deserves one final opportunity, and so does Ashford Stud." Rupert snorted dismissively. "And risk permanent damage? For what? More embarrassment?" Eleanor spoke up clearly, resolve crystallizing firmly within her. "We have a strategy, one final race, St. Leger. Nightshade's injury will be carefully managed and rehabilitated. We'll use therapeutic mud treatments at Newmarket, proven effective countless times. One more race. Win or lose, it decides Ashford's future." The room erupted into tense debate, voices clashing harshly. Eleanor stood quietly resolute, gaze unwavering, until slowly, respect and admiration crept into the expressions of those around her, drawn by the quiet strength of her conviction. Finally, an elderly cousin named Margaret, respected among family members, rose slowly, silencing arguments. We've always been defined by courage, by honoring tradition, not selling it for convenience. Eleanor deserves this chance, and Nightshade deserves his. Her statement carried profound weight, shifting opinion palpably within the room. Slowly, reluctantly, heads nodded in cautious agreement, defiance melting subtly away. Rupert stood rigidly, eyes cold with suppressed fury, knowing he'd lost crucial ground. Later that evening, Eleanor walked quietly to Nightshade's stable, the weight of responsibility heavy yet strangely reassuring upon her shoulders. She found Amelia and Sir Arthur quietly checking Nightshade, carefully massaging soothing ointment onto his injured leg. "How is he?" Eleanor asked gently, watching anxiously. "Improving," Amelia replied softly, eyes filled with cautious hope. "Slowly, steadily. He's determined." Sir Arthur nodded, voice gruff yet comforting. "He'll need strict management, patience, and precise rehabilitation. But the St. Leger is achievable, Eleanor. We have one shot." Eleanor exhaled deeply, the enormity of her decision settling heavily but clearly within her heart. "Then let's give him every chance. Together, we'll see this through." Amelia smiled warmly, confidence lighting her face. "He's brave enough for all of us." As Eleanor returned slowly toward the house, twilight gently blanketing Ashford, she found Beatrice waiting quietly by the entrance, her expression softly vulnerable. "Mom," Beatrice began hesitantly, voice gentle with remorse. "I was wrong. I'm sorry for hurting you, but I understand now what you're fighting for." Eleanor embraced her daughter warmly, relief and forgiveness flowing deeply between them. "Your courage saved us today, Beatrice. I'm proud of you." Beatrice smiled softly, tears shining gently in her eyes. "We'll fight together now, all of us." Eleanor nodded warmly, heart swelling profoundly. For the first time in weeks, hope surged strongly within her, fierce and unyielding. Inside the manor, the halls echoed quietly with whispered echoes of determination, resilience, and shared purpose. Ashford Stud's soul had been tested, strained, nearly broken, but it remained intact, stronger perhaps for surviving such storms. And as Eleanor climbed slowly into bed that night, exhaustion settling deeply, she knew clearly the path ahead would demand immense courage, sacrifice, and relentless belief. But it was a path worth walking, a journey toward something profound, enduring, and true. Together with Nightshade, Sir Arthur, Amelia, and her family reunited, they would confront the uncertainty ahead, not with fear, but with quiet, unshakable faith. Ashford's legacy, their shared bond, had been challenged fiercely. Now, united, they would reclaim it once and for all. The morning of the St. Leger Stakes dawned with a somber drizzle over Doncaster racecourse. Gray clouds hung low, mist curling around the grandstands, softening their grandeur into something ghostly and almost ethereal. Despite the dreary weather, the atmosphere crackled with a palpable energy, anticipation blending seamlessly with anxious excitement. Spectators packed tightly into the stands, colorful umbrellas popping open like blooming flowers against the muted backdrop. Lady Eleanor Ashford stood silently at the stable entrance, her heart pounding heavily beneath her composed exterior. Months of struggle, sacrifice, and quiet hope had culminated in this singular day, this final defining moment for Ashford Stud. Nightshade stood quietly beside her, Amelia York meticulously adjusting the bridle, whispering soothing words into the thoroughbred's ear. The horse appeared calm, resolute, his dark eyes alert but untroubled. "How is he, Amelia?" Eleanor's voice was quiet, carefully neutral, hiding the profound tension she felt within. "He's ready," Amelia replied firmly, her voice confident despite the weight of the moment. "We've done everything right. His leg has healed beautifully. This is his race." Eleanor nodded, drawing a deep, steadying breath. Her gaze moved briefly toward the grandstand, catching sight of Rupert in his luxurious box, his confident smirk and expensive suit an unsubtle statement of anticipated triumph. Beside him, a cluster of investors watched eagerly, their interest in Ashford purely financial, lacking heart or genuine care. "Remember the strategy," Sir Arthur's voice broke firmly into Eleanor's thoughts. The legendary trainer stepped quietly from the shadows, his presence commanding yet reassuring. "Hold Nightshade back at first. Keep him calm. Conserve strength. The track conditions are wet. We must use caution. When the others tire in the mud, that's when you let him go." Amelia nodded sharply, her eyes intensely focused. "Understood, sir." The call soon came for the horses to enter the parade ring, and Eleanor walked alongside Nightshade and Amelia, the horse moving with measured grace, head held proudly, drawing curious and skeptical stares from observers. Eleanor ignored their murmured doubts, eyes focused only on Nightshade, whose composure remained unwavering. Then came the announcement, sharp and definitive. Horses and riders took their positions at the starting gates. Eleanor moved quickly to a reserved section of the stands, her heart now hammering violently as the gates snapped shut, a hush of tense anticipation blanketing the course. A heartbeat later, the gates sprang open, unleashing the explosive thunder of hooves upon wet turf, horses and jockeys surging forward in a tightly packed mass. Nightshade, per their careful plan, dropped immediately toward the back, Amelia holding him deliberately behind the frenzied pack. Anxiously, Eleanor watched as mud splattered violently beneath pounding hooves, horses battling fiercely for advantageous positions, their jockeys hunched low against the driving drizzle, colors blurred in a chaotic tapestry of movement and energy. With each furlong, the relentless pace claimed casualties, the soft, slick ground exhausting even the strongest competitors, their strides heavy and strained, breathing labored. Yet still, Nightshade waited patiently, guided expertly by Amelia's steady hands, moving smoothly along the inside rail, his stride even and measured, eyes calm and focused. Eleanor's heart pounded painfully with mounting tension, waiting, hoping desperately. Then, at last, came the pivotal moment, the final sweeping curve, with the finish line now visible across a seemingly impossible expanse of sodden ground. As horses ahead stumbled and slowed under exhaustion, Amelia leaned closer to Nightshade, voice calm yet urgently confident. "It's time now, boy. Run." Instantly, something extraordinary ignited deep within Nightshade, a burst of pure, raw power, muscles bunching fiercely as he surged forward with electrifying speed, mud flinging high behind him. Eleanor felt her breath catch sharply, her vision blurring briefly with sudden tears of stunned hope and fierce pride. "Go, Nightshade!" she shouted passionately, voice blending indistinguishably with thousands around her, the entire crowd erupting into awestruck, deafening cheers. "Go!" Nightshade soared forward like a black arrow loosed from its bow, each powerful stride propelling him swiftly past exhausted rivals, closing the gap effortlessly. One by one, competitors fell rapidly behind, unable to match his relentless, breathtaking pace. At the front, the leading horse faltered visibly, stride heavy with exhaustion. Nightshade seized the moment with stunning determination, moving effortlessly past, claiming the lead decisively, his stride unbroken, unrelenting. In the final yards, Eleanor watched breathlessly as Nightshade drew impossibly ahead. 5 lengths, then 8, then an astounding 12-length lead as he surged powerfully across the finish line. Cheers exploded thunderously throughout the grandstands, a roar of disbelief, joy, and collective amazement. Rupert stood frozen, expression twisted sharply in stunned disbelief. A document, the sale contract for Ashford, fluttering uselessly from his grasp, landing forgotten, sodden in the mud at his feet. Eleanor raced breathlessly toward Nightshade, tears streaming freely down her cheeks, overwhelming relief and joy swelling fiercely within her heart. Amelia dismounted swiftly, embracing Eleanor tightly, their shared victory binding them powerfully. Nightshade stood calmly, breathing heavily but uninjured, ears flicking softly forward. Eleanor gently stroked his neck, gratitude and affection flowing profoundly between them. "You've done it, Nightshade," she whispered emotionally. "You've truly done it." The award ceremony that followed was a blur of ecstatic celebration and heartfelt congratulations. Eleanor stood proudly, heart swelling profoundly as Nightshade received his laurels, cheers ringing passionately from the crowd. Cameras flashed brightly, capturing this extraordinary historic moment, a triumph achieved not merely through speed, but through courage, resilience, and unyielding belief. Later, as dusk settled gently over Ashford Stud, Eleanor stood quietly in the dimly lit stable, watching Nightshade rest peacefully. Footsteps approached softly behind her, and she turned slowly, finding Sir Arthur watching her thoughtfully, eyes warm with respect. "You did it, Eleanor," he murmured gruffly, voice gentle yet powerful. "You've proven what genuine leadership truly means. Trust, faith, and unwavering purpose." She smiled warmly, emotion shining clearly in her eyes. "We did it together, Arthur. Nightshade, Amelia, Beatrice, Oliver, you, everyone who believed. Ashford's legacy belongs to us all." Sir Arthur nodded slowly, voice quietly reflective. "That's exactly what your mother always believed. She'd be proud." Eleanor's throat tightened with emotion, tears stinging gently. Yet her heart felt profoundly at peace, knowing clearly that Ashford's legacy had finally been secured, not merely through victory, but through perseverance, sacrifice, and deeply rooted values that transcended mere financial gain. Together, they stepped quietly outside beneath a sky clearing softly, revealing stars shimmering gently, each point of light quietly symbolic of hope restored, dreams reclaimed, and the unbreakable bonds that had carried them through darkness toward triumph. Ashford Stud, Eleanor realized clearly, wasn't merely land or buildings. It was courage, resilience, family, and the quiet, profound bravery to believe in something greater than oneself. And in that gentle realization, beneath the vast, starry sky, Eleanor Ashford finally knew profound peace. The morning after the St. Leger victory dawned golden over Ashford Stud, bathing the entire estate in soft, warm hues of sunlight. The pastures seemed lush again, the fences sturdy and proud, and the manor house stood regally, as if restored not only by triumph, but by something deeper and far more lasting. Lady Eleanor Ashford stood at the grand window of the drawing room, savoring the serene moment. She watched the sunlight spill gracefully across the sweeping fields, the gentle hills undulating peacefully beneath a pristine blue sky. Her heart felt a quiet, profound sense of peace, a hard-won serenity built through tears, sacrifice, and unwavering determination. Behind her, Beatrice and Oliver burst into the room, their laughter ringing vibrantly, full of carefree joy and renewed closeness. Eleanor turned to greet her children warmly, holding them close, cherishing their warmth and strength. "We did it, Mom," Oliver said excitedly, his eyes bright and full of pride. "Nightshade was amazing." Eleanor smiled softly, stroking her son's hair affectionately. "He truly was, Oliver. But remember, winning isn't simply about being first across a line. It's about courage, determination, and believing in something bigger than ourselves." Beatrice leaned gently against her mother's side, voice quiet and thoughtful. "We learned a lot, Mom, about family, trust, and never giving up, even when things look impossible." Eleanor hugged her daughter tightly, voice filled with quiet pride. "Exactly, my dear. Those lessons are what truly matter. That's the real legacy of Ashford." As the morning progressed, news spread rapidly about Nightshade's incredible triumph. Calls flooded in from sponsors, potential investors, and racing enthusiasts eager to align themselves with Ashford Stud's renewed reputation. Among them was a call from a prominent equine education foundation, offering substantial sponsorship to transform Ashford into a training academy for aspiring young jockeys and stable hands. Eleanor met swiftly with representatives from the foundation, feeling a quiet, joyous certainty that this was the path forward, not merely to restore Ashford, but to evolve its legacy meaningfully. The decision was unanimous and enthusiastic. Within days, preparations began earnestly to transition Ashford Stud into a state-of-the-art training center, dedicated to nurturing new talent and honoring the profound heritage of horsemanship. Even Rupert, humbled by Nightshade's astonishing victory, visited quietly one evening. He stood stiffly at the stable entrance, pride visibly wounded, but softened by genuine respect. Eleanor greeted him calmly, choosing compassion over lingering bitterness. "You've surprised everyone, Eleanor," Rupert admitted softly, eyes averted briefly in genuine humility. "Including me." Eleanor smiled gently, voice warm and forgiving. "We both learned something valuable through this, Rupert. Tradition doesn't live in mere buildings or land. It thrives in purpose, honor, and belief. That's what Ashford truly represents." Rupert nodded slowly, understanding quietly dawning in his eyes. "Perhaps you're right. Maybe I've missed that all along." As he departed quietly, Eleanor felt profound relief and gratitude. Ashford's future was secure, its legacy stronger now than ever before, built not on resentment or division, but on reconciliation, hope, and shared purpose. Weeks passed swiftly as the estate buzzed with enthusiastic activity, welcoming young students eager to learn. Eleanor watched joyfully as Amelia York proudly instructed aspiring jockeys, teaching valuable lessons in patience, discipline, and respect for the animals entrusted to their care. Sir Arthur, too, agreed to stay on as chief mentor, offering his decades of wisdom generously to a new generation. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the sun dipped gently toward the horizon, Eleanor stood thoughtfully by Nightshade's paddock, watching her brave, loyal thoroughbred graze contentedly. Amelia approached quietly, smiling warmly, eyes bright with fulfillment. "Nightshade looks happier than ever," Amelia observed softly, her voice full of gentle pride. "He's earned this peace." Eleanor nodded slowly, voice reflective. "And so have we, Amelia. We fought not just for victory, but for something deeper: integrity, purpose, and our right to shape our own legacy." Together, they watched the tranquil scene unfold, the setting sun bathing everything in soft, radiant gold. Eleanor felt deep within her heart the profound satisfaction of knowing Ashford Stud would thrive for generations, not as a relic of past glories, but as a living, breathing example of purpose-driven leadership and courage in the face of uncertainty. That evening, a special celebration dinner filled the manor house with laughter and conversation, all gathered around a long table. Eleanor, Beatrice, Oliver, Amelia, Sir Arthur, Agnes, and many others whose loyalty had sustained Ashford. Eleanor stood quietly, raising her glass in heartfelt toast, voice clear and sincere. Tradition, as we've learned, doesn't reside solely within ancient walls or prestigious titles, she said earnestly, meeting each person's gaze warmly. It lives in our courage to defend what we truly believe in. It's in our willingness to embrace change, to nurture talent, and to act with integrity. Around the table, heads nodded thoughtfully. Smiles of agreement and pride, illuminating faces touched profoundly by the journey they had shared. Eleanor continued warmly, "Today, Ashford Stud stands not only as a testament to its past, but as a beacon toward its future, guided by purpose, sustained by courage, and strengthened by all of you." A cheer rose enthusiastically from those gathered, glasses raised joyously in shared triumph. Later that night, as Eleanor tucked Oliver and Beatrice gently into bed, their eyes heavy with happy exhaustion, Oliver spoke sleepily, voice soft with quiet curiosity. "Mom, do you think Grandma would be proud of us?" Eleanor smiled softly, gently stroking her son's hair. "I think she would be very proud. Because we've learned what matters most. That true nobility lies in standing firm for our values, in caring deeply for each other, and in daring to pursue our dreams." As sleep gently claimed her children, Eleanor walked quietly through Ashford's peaceful corridors, stepping outside beneath a sky glittering brightly with stars. She stood silently, breathing deeply the cool night air, feeling profound gratitude and peace settling deeply within her heart. She knew clearly that Ashford's story wasn't simply about winning a race. It was about something far more meaningful, 3 powerful lessons that now resonated strongly in her heart. Firstly, the underdog advantage, the courage to believe in those overlooked and undervalued. Nightshade had proven this lesson undeniably. Secondly, leadership wasn't about mere authority, but about purposeful intention. Leadership via purpose, the unwavering commitment to values, vision, and collective trust. Finally, Eleanor understood the concept of Legacy 4.0 deeply, recognizing that true heritage lay in evolution, in blending cherished tradition with sustainable, forward-looking vision. She stood quietly beneath the stars, heart profoundly grateful for the journey she'd traveled, the doubts, fears, and triumphs that had brought her here. Softly, she whispered a heartfelt promise into the serene night. Ashford's legacy will live on, not through mere privilege or past glories, but through purpose, honor, and courage. This is our true inheritance, and we'll cherish it always. As Eleanor returned slowly toward the welcoming warmth of the manor, Ashford Stud stood silently beneath the vast, starlit sky, stronger now than ever before, not through walls of stone, but through courage, resilience, and deeply rooted purpose. And that, Lady Eleanor Ashford now knew clearly, was the most lasting triumph of all.